tonight we're going to go into the interviews. The interviews that Karen Reed had given. She did a couple of different ones. One was to Dateline, one was for 2020. And then we also have some other interviews that she did with, or not just her, but her parents did. And we'll listen to a couple of things that were disclosed in these interviews and kind of get our own opinion of what we think about what the statements that she made. We'll take a couple of, take extra notice to the words that she says and what she says that happened or didn't happen, and see if anything changes in any of her stories. And so we're going to be doing that today. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell, because I know what the next thing that we're going to be doing is. We're going to be looking at the injuries. And I'll have a little bit of a preview at the end of tonight's show about that. So without further ado, let's get into the content. So the first interview we're going to be listening to is between Karen Reed, and I think this is on the 2020 special. We're only going to be hearing the audio, and I want to thank Jeff H for helping me out and well, I guess edit the audio. Without further ado, let's get into it.
I called a few of his buddies, their wives. I knew something was wrong.
One of her first calls is to Jennifer McCabe.
So I left the interview in the format that it was presented. So it's all over the place. I would have preferred that ABC and Dateline and Nightline and whoever was doing these interviews, if they would have done them in chronological order, but they didn't. So bear with it. It does kind of get in order the further it goes down. Also, I am not playing the actual interview. We're just going to look at some still images for the copyright purposes as well.
I said, John didn't come home. So I said, well, then I don't know where he is. And I said, I'm going to go back to the bars. Like maybe they let people back in after hours.
You were going to.
So right off the bat, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sure does sound like she didn't go back to where she dropped off John. She didn't, according to her at least, she never went back to the Albert's home. That's kind of what I'm getting from right here, right now.
I called a few of his buddies, their wives. I knew something was wrong.
One of her first calls is to Jennifer McCabe.
I said, John didn't come home. So I said, well, then I don't know where he is. And I said, I'm going to go back to the bars. Like maybe they let people back in after hours.
You were going to canvass the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, just going to drive around in the 2 square miles that we spent the preceding night. Now I have an immense sense of dread, like a fright in me that I have not experienced before.
So you're driving around. Do you expect to see him like lying on the street drunk?
Yeah.
Or passed out?
I was worried he might have gotten hit by a plow.
So she's worried that he may have gotten hit by a plow. However, according to what we're going to hear in a few moments, she remembers that he walked up to at least one of the entrances. And I want you to take note of that, because in the second interview, I want to see how much or how little that small amount of information changes. And so she was able to remember the bars that they were at and those type of things, but not remember where she last left John O'Keefe. Didn't even remember, according to Connor in our live chat. And howdy, Connor. Nobody's attacking Connor. She's a good person. He apparently, or she apparently went back to the bars. Didn't remember that she dropped him off there. Didn't even remember driving up there. That's a pretty heavy sign of intoxication, in my opinion, if you can't remember that. That's, and her blood alcohol level kind of proves it. Let's continue.
That was my first thought. It's the only explanation I could think of for why John just disappeared into thin air.
So the only thought she had as far as why John O'Keefe would disappear into thin air is because he was hit by a plow. I mean, he went into the house, according to her. Why? How do you connect those dots? I don't understand that.
He's not where I thought he was, and nobody has seen him. The only other vehicles on the road are plows. I go back by the bars, I drive around. After about 20 minutes of driving around, I go to get Jen.
She gets to Jennifer McCabe's. Terry Roberts shows up.
So she called Jen, and then she goes out to search for him. But Jen tells her on the phone something to the effect that, or she tells, Jen that she doesn't know where he's at. And she tells him that she's going to call her brother-in-law, who is Brian Albert, on that phone call. Yet she forgot after that phone call that that's the last place she was seen, or that's the last place she saw him. I don't understand that connection there. That doesn't make sense to me.
And they decide together, let's go back to John's. The three women head inside to see if John has come home.
So now it's 5:36, still pitch black outside, and we spent about 10 minutes at John's.
The three women are now taking this harrowing ride around town in the blizzard condition.
As you come down Fairview, there's a bit of a decline and it curves to the left, and my eyes are peeled. And I said, he's right there. I jumped out the passenger side and I fell into the street. His eyes were shut and he had spots of blood in different areas on his face, and he was still, not stiff, but still. It was cold, I felt cold, but I didn't feel dangerously cold. And it was just an odd feeling to know that I'm okay, I'm not dying, but he's here with me and he's dying, and I can't warm him up.
I know. Where are the blankets? I don't see blankets, Terry.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man passed out in the snow.
Hello?
I had called my father. He didn't answer, and I texted him, John is dead. I didn't know for sure that John was dead, but I'm trying to elicit a response, and I thought John could be dead.
I mean, I wouldn't blame her if she thought that he was dead in that moment. I mean, his temperature was down. He looked all bloody, and, based on what she's describing. So I know a lot of people will point at that and say, oh, she knew he was dead before he was technically dead. I don't see that aspect there. There's some interesting things, though, that she's saying, and we'll go through them here in a sec.
And he called me back, and I was distraught. And I said, I don't want to live. I mean, I didn't have any ideation of harming myself. I've never dealt with grief of this magnitude, and I just felt out of my skin. So my father called the police. They put me in a psychiatric hold. They took my phone, they took my clothes, they wouldn't let me speak to anyone. And then sometime later, about mid-morning, I saw John's parents and brother pass in the ER and all go into the door, 2 doors down.
From his past, Karen Reed, who he briefly dated many years earlier. How did you meet John O'Keefe?
I met John in 2004, February, at his sister's 30th birthday party.
And so what drew you to him? I mean, what did you like about him?
I thought he was handsome and he was sweet, and I mean, I was 24, so that was about the criteria at the time. It just came and went, and didn't speak to him again. Not intentionally, it just wasn't serious.
But now, more than 15 years later, Karen is living in the Boston area with a career as a financial analyst and an adjunct professor teaching finance. And she sees a message from John on Facebook.
When I saw his picture, it was with several young children, and then it triggered my memory that his sister and his sister's husband had passed away. And he told me, yeah, I have the kids now. I thought that was amazing. And he said they're 9 and 12. 3 days later, he came over and I cooked, and it was like very natural.
How serious did things get that second round?
Pretty serious, very fast. The second week, he said, do you want to come, meet the crew, meet his niece and nephew? I was happy to go.
Was there talk of marriage?
No.
Did you want that?
I would have considered it strongly for John, but it's not ever been something that I've aspired to.
So she didn't want to marry him. I mean, she's not trying to say that harshly or anything like that, but that's what she's saying. She's like, I didn't want to marry him. That wasn't my plan, my whatever. And you can kind of see in her actions, I think that there was a moment there where maybe John O'Keefe may have started to tell Karen Reed that things are starting to get, are on the end. And I think that's around the time that she's probably texting, Brian Higgins. And from what it sounds like this whole interaction between her and Higgins was initiated by her. And then she went to his house and things of that nature. And, those are kind of actions of somebody who's being told that the relationship is going to end, especially somebody who may be a little bit vindictive. Those are some vindictive actions that are being taken there. So I think that there was probably no talk of marriage between the two. It sounded like maybe perhaps this relationship was already run its course. And I think that may have been what what some folks have said that they have testified to as well. I know the nieces and nephews have testified that John had mentioned that the relationship had ran its course and that the relationship was going to be ending. And from her just, not willing to say, yeah, I love them and we're going to get married, or I would have married him if he asked. I mean, the guy's passed away. It's not like he's going to come tomorrow and get on his knee and ask. And so that tells me there was probably a little bit of turmoil. And when you listen to the voicemails, which we're going to hear tonight, it really does paint a weird picture there.
I ended up leaving my house to join John in Canton at 8:30.
So you met him for drinks.
Yep.
How did the night go?
It was fine. I walked in, he was with 3 other fellas. I got there a little after 9. And he gave me a hug.
Ends over at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, which is just across the street and down. It's like, 2-minute walk.
So who was there when you got there?
There was a table of people right away. We said hi to a bunch of people. We stayed there for about 90 minutes. I was released from the hospital at noon. My father and my brother and sister-in-law came to pick me up. And I said, Dad, I have to go see the kids. I just can't imagine what they're going through. I just want to hug them.
They all head to John's house where he something she says she had noticed earlier that morning when searching for John with Jennifer and Carrie.
I showed my dad my light. It was cracked. And he said, I just want to make sure the light is operational. I'm not going to put your car back on the road if I know it's impaired in any way. So we go into the house. John's nephew was not home from his sleepover yet, but John's parents, Paul, his brother, and his niece were there.
Karen says John's mother seemed to keep her distance.
They had pulled into the driveway before me, so I was presuming she saw my cracked taillight and was thinking, did you hit my son? I could sense from her that she was looking at me very warily.
I mean, that can also be a sign of being paranoid of guilt. Thinking that somebody's, seeing you and they know what you did, you're busted. Those are the feelings and emotions that you would get. And I think she said right here was the time that she decided she needed a lawyer. What does the family's, looks have to do with police coming and talking to you already? I think this is some more talk of somebody who, in the moment, she's talking about what she was thinking and kind of almost admitting here's some guilt, in my opinion.
And then when John's nephew came home, I just wanted to see him and squeeze him and hug him. It was quite uncomfortable. I said, Dad, come upstairs to the master bedroom. And I said, I think I need to leave. I said, I think John's mother thinks I did something to John.
At what point on Saturday the 29th did you have the wherewithal to think, maybe I need an attorney?
As soon as I interacted with John's mother at John's house, when we were driving home, I said to my father, I got to get an attorney.
What did the family do then?
Well, it was a blizzard. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't be together.
We couldn't go anywhere until the day after. I went to Peggy's or Johnny's house and just to be with her.
So those are some of John O'Keefe's friends. And the reason why I kept that part of it in there is a lot of people have come in with this notion that I don't know if they're called the SRT team or CRT. I don't know, the searching Massachusetts version of the CSI crew that are going to go out there and look for debris in the ground, and that it was a couple of days before some of these pieces were found and they needed a snowblower. Well, it sounds like there's a pretty horrible blizzard. And when you look at the dash cam, I think your expectations of any search and rescue, law enforcement, CSI crew to be able to find all of the pieces of the taillight in blizzard conditions at night is come on now. This isn't Law and Order. This isn't CSI, where they're going to somehow manipulate the wind or whatever the case may have been, and they find it. That's not how these things work. Most of the times it takes a couple of times going by to figure out and find out things, especially if you're dealing in the elements in the manner that they were. And thirdly, when did they decide that this was a homicide scene, right? Because if they initially thought that this was a pedestrian vehicle hit and run or DUI run, that's not something that literally or necessarily needs an investigation to this magnitude. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen a scene where somebody has been a victim of an accident and they passed away on the street, whether it's be, two vehicles colliding or a vehicle versus pedestrian. Those roads are often open within a couple of hours. They put some, litter or some other material, sand and stuff like that on the ground where fluids and blood may have been, and they open it up. It's not something that is uncommon. So when it was questioned to be a homicide, or they think that maybe they had a little bit more to look into, that's when you're probably closing it up and starting to change it up. Which also reminds me, and also makes me wonder, why would, all right, so like, let's just say the Canton police, or not even the Canton police, but it's the state trooper and Higgins and all these other officers that were involved. Let's just say that they and Albert, these Boston police officers, all of them are involved. If the plan was to make this go away, right? Why charge somebody for murder? Like, why charge anybody for anything? Why not say that this was a unfortunate hit and run? Karen Reed's taillight doesn't match. Her cracked taillight wasn't broken to pieces. We're still searching for somebody. Never close the case so that nobody ever gets the information. Nobody ever gets the pictures. Nobody ever gets anything about the case because it's still open, looking for an unidentified vehicle that may have hit him that night that caused those injuries. And there it goes away. Why create this whole story that you have to convict somebody for murder? I mean, you're going a really long way and out of your way to do something like that. And it really doesn't make that much sense to me. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that's something that I had kind of noticed when I was going through this.
When the troopers came to my house, now I know I haven't done anything, but they said, if we're just trying to help find out what happened to John. If you care about John, you need to help us piece together his final moments. And I answered their questions. It was about 7 p.m. I was talking to my best friend on the phone, and I said, there's a lot of cops circling. And I said, I think I'm gonna get arrested. When they come, they look like regular people, but they're here to take you away. It's scary.
Did they knock on the door?
Can't remember if they knocked or if they rang the bell, but they circled the whole property. There were cops everywhere. They were shining lights in my back window, my front.
What was that moment like when you felt the metal handcuffs go on you and they put you into a squad car?
It's scary. You're short of breath, and we're careening up the highway. Your ankles are shackled and your arms are behind you, and you just try to concentrate on your breathing. It's frightening. It's frightening. When I got to the barracks, there were local news stations.
Karen Reed's charges and what she was arraigned on were manslaughter, negligent homicide, and leaving the scene of an accident involving injury.
What did you plead?
Not guilty.
Court is setting bail in the amount of $50,000.
Defendants then made several statements to her indicating, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark.
So why would she question if she hit him? She's going to eventually talk about how she pulled up and how she left. And in the manner that she did, doesn't make any sense for her to think that she hit him. I think they even asked her if she did a 3-point turn or backed up, and she said no. Which I have my own theory on why they asked those questions. I would have asked the same question, and for a reason, and I'll explain when we get to there. But if she didn't back up, she didn't leave, she didn't do a 3-point turn, and she just pulled up and left, how did she think she hit him? Why would she think she hit him? I don't know.
Frightening. It's frightening. When I got to the barracks, there were local news stations.
Karen Reed's charges and what she was arraigned on were manslaughter, negligent homicide, and leaving the scene of an accident involving injury.
What did you plead?
Not guilty.
Court is setting bail in the amount of $50,000.
Defendants then made several statements to her indicating, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark. Did I hit him?
Her attorney responded that day.
I don't see any criminal intent that would justify manslaughter. And there's a reason for that, because there was no criminal intent.
See, this is huge right here for me. He says, and this is David Yannetti, attorney, and he says in trial that this cannot be manslaughter because there was manslaughter requires criminal intent, and there was no criminal intent, implying that there was an accident. If there wasn't an accident, you'd be saying at that point, there was no accident between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. But they're not saying that. And this is, I think, one of the reasons, or one of the things a lot of people have pointed out, where they said that, hey, their lawyer was saying it was an accident. It was an accident. There was no intent. And then they changed it up when Alan Jackson became involved. That was no longer the story. However, her own attorney is implying that she hit him, but that there was no intent, that this was an accident. I mean, how else would you guys describe this statement by David Yannetti referencing intent on, hitting Officer O'Keefe? We'll back that up just a little bit so we can hear it again.
This was not some random stranger. This was my client's boyfriend. No idea that he was deceased or that anything had happened.
Let me go back a little bit.
I'm gonna get arrested.
That's too far.
He made several statements to her indicating I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I said I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark. Did I hit him?
Her attorney responded that day.
I don't see any criminal intent that would justify manslaughter, and there's a reason for that because there was no criminal intent. This was not some random stranger. This was my client's boyfriend. No idea that he was deceased or that anything had happened.
Yeah, I mean, that don't sit well with me, when that's the argument that is being said. And Great Dane asks if I watched the entire trial. No, I haven't. I'm an ex-law enforcement officer. My deal is first and I want to answer it this way because I do get this question a lot, and a lot of people don't understand that I'm not just like a YouTuber that has no experience in law enforcement or how courts go or being an expert on the stand or things of that nature. I'm a little bit different. I look at the evidence on my own.
What did you plead?
Not guilty.
Is it possible that you might have hit him unwittingly in your admittedly very large SUV?
No, not possible.
Why would they want to be involved in this conspiracy?
Because he's dead. I think things went too far. It was late. There was alcohol involved.
It's at this point that I first sat down with Karen Reed to talk about what she claims happened that night. She absolutely refutes the prosecution's claims that receipts and security video shows she had up to 9 drinks that evening. When you walked out of the bar, how many drinks had you had?
I had probably about 4, and not 4 that I completed either. I didn't drink maybe more than a few sips at the waterfall.
And 4 drinks you felt fine to drive?
Yep. I missed the turn. That would have been the most direct route.
Did you?
So she would have been good to drive, and the next thing she says, I missed the turn that I was supposed to take.
You pull into the driveway?
No. I pulled at the foot of the driveway.
And do you and John have a conversation about what's going to happen?
I said, go check and let me know, and I'll follow you behind. So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone. I hadn't been on my phone the entire night.
So she looks down at her phone as he's approaching the door this time. Remember that. She sees him approaching the door and she looks down. That is when she looks away from her phone, or looks away to her phone. I want to remember that. We'll note that down.
I cue up a song to play on my Bluetooth, and I just start browsing through, missed text messages and a couple emails. And I probably waited about a full minute, and I look back at the door. I would have expected him to be either walking back to me or calling me that, yeah, we're here.
Karen says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that John O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her. And so she decided to leave and drive back to his house.
Now, I'm not there yet. I haven't gone there yet on some of the evidence here. If anybody does know, is there any evidence that she was texting him and asking and calling him at that specific moment while she was waiting for him outside like she says she is? I'd be interested to know that, because I honestly don't know if that is true or not.
Did you kill John O'Keefe?
I did not kill John O'Keefe. I've never harmed a hair on John O'Keefe's head.
I also want you to take notice of her emotions when she talks about somebody, about John O'Keefe and him being killed, and her having to think about him being killed. Just take note of those emotions, because a little bit later she's going to get, just take note of those emotions.
The Commonwealth says that you had 9 drinks that night. You claim it's 4 and change. I mean, is it possible that you hit him with the back of your car and just didn't realize it?
No.
You had 4 drinks, they say 9 drinks, so how drunk were you?
I had felt like I had alcohol. I felt that I had a buzz, but I did not feel it was unsafe for me to be operating my vehicle.
Would you say that you were angry with John that night?
Yes.
Could you have been angry enough and slightly drunk because he had annoyed you that in the fit of rage you just backed up and
Never.
tried to tap him?
I would
Not
never
to try to kill him, but try to...
to tap him with my 6,000-pound full-size SUV, to hit John's body with my car. No.
Now, they mention, and she mentions, I think a little bit later, that, there was alcohol involved and things get a little bit crazy, and that's why she's blaming the Alberts. But she's admitting here that she was feeling her alcohol and very angry at John. I'm just saying.
The niece said she'd overheard John recently tell Karen that their relationship had run its course.
Is it possible that that anger sent you into a fit of rage, coupled with the fact that he apparently had wanted to break up or insinuated that?
He never insinuated that he wanted to break up. I have been angry with John. I was angry with him that night, but being angry with someone and being angry with them and wanting to physically hurt them with a 6,000 pound piece of machinery is another hemisphere.
So the reason why she's bringing up the 6,000 pound vehicle and she's constantly bringing up the size of the vehicle is she's going to try to, or the defense is going to try to, in my opinion, and I'm sure we've probably seen this in court, they're going to argue that the injuries don't match being hit by an automobile that weighs 6,000 pounds. But speed and where you get hit and direction, those things all take, make a difference. All right. Like I've seen a person get hit in very slow miles, like 5 or 6 get run over backwards, hit their head on the pavement, and they were deceased. I've seen another guy walking across the highway. He was intoxicated, 18-wheeler coming up, saw him jackknife the vehicle, and part of the trailer hit that dude and flung him like 50 feet or so. Guy lost his dentures, his shoes were off, broken bones everywhere, but he survived. So, those things happen just because the vehicle is that amount. That's what they're trying to perceive or make the viewer perceive, like, okay, it was a pretty big vehicle. And then you see the cuts on the arm, and then the defense claims that there was no bruising. I got a picture from the defense's, one of the defense pictures that they presented that might say different.
Of intention.
John, I hate you. I'm here with your kid. You're using me right now. You're a loser. Pervert.
That really sounds like the relationship was going far. I'm saying that sarcastically. That is insane. I mean, that shows a lot of anger. She was under the influence. And a lot of things can happen when you're drunk and angry. I mean, that shows a lot of anger.
There has been nothing as divisive as this case.
Any idiot knows that Karen Reed is innocent.
I kept that there because that lady just kind of called herself an idiot. She goes, "Any idiot knows that Karen Reed is innocent." And I was just like, well, I'm not an idiot, so I don't know that she's innocent. That was just a little slight jab, a little joke from me.
And John got up, gave me off.
All right, now this is the next interview. That was the only thing that came out of that one. Well, I'm lying. They end up doing an interview in her hotel room, which I put at the end of this. So we will see that. But now we're going into the other one. I can't remember what it was called, North something or another. But this is the one on, I believe, Nightline or Dateline. I'm sorry, it's right there on the bottom. Here goes.
Offered a seat to me, and I said, I'm gonna stand. So John stood with me, and we were happy, having fun, laughing, just very normal.
So there comes a point where you're out of that place, huh?
Yeah, we left after about 90 minutes. And one of them was a Boston cop, another cop, a Federal Bureau, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We walk in, and It's, oh, hey, over here, how's it going? And you walk around, you say hi to everyone.
The vibes, as we used to say in the old days, were good?
The vibes were good, yes. Yeah, the vibes were good.
What time of night is it, would you guess?
We get there at about 10:45.
And you're there for how long, do you think?
Till midnight, just after midnight, till it closed.
John and Karen were invited to a small party by Jen McCabe. They'd also been at the bar.
Her brother-in-law was a more senior Boston police officer who, ironically, lived in Canton his whole life, 2.5 miles from John's house, and yet we never socialized with him.
And his name is what?
His name is Brian Albert.
And he worked with John?
He worked on the job, but they didn't really cross paths, I don't think, professionally.
So it's closing hours, and you're on your way to?
Yeah, we're going to Brian Albert's house.
Brian Albert?
Yeah, which I had never been to.
You're driving?
I'm driving.
What are you driving? What's your vehicle?
I have a Lexus LX, which is the full-size SUV.
That's the monster truck, right?
Yes, yep.
How were you doing with drink at that point?
Yeah, I'd had several.
You probably...
But I felt fine.
So in the other interview, she said she had sips. She wasn't very drunk. She didn't agree with the 9 drinks that the state was saying. Now she's in this interview here. She's saying that she had several. Okay. I think that's more accurate given how much of her blood alcohol level was or how high it was.
I mean, I felt like I had had a couple drinks, but
You didn't say, I'm legless here. This is...
No, I didn't feel impaired.
The Albert house was about 2 miles from the bar.
Headdress, huh?
We get to the house. It didn't look like it was busting at the seams with people. And there was maybe 1 or 2 cars in the driveway, and I'm still on the street. And I had the passenger side facing the driveway. And I said, John, can you just run in there and can we make sure we're welcome here and it's somewhere we want to be? He said, yeah, I'll be right back. And he got out of the car.
Goes to the front door of the house?
Yes.
So in the last one, she said he went to the side door. Now it's the front door of the house.
Did you see him go in the house?
Yeah, I saw him approach the front door and put his hand on the door.
In your memory, he's going towards a friend's house. How far do you see him go?
I see him go to the door and start to cross the threshold.
So even he is kind of, and I wish I could show you guys the video, but in this moment when she's starting to say that she saw him go into the house, he's like, well, how far? Like trying to prevent her from putting her foot in her mouth or changing her story. And yet here it's a complete change of story. She now went from in the last one saying that as he approached the home on the side door, that she looked down. She was parked at the foot of the driveway, remember? And she looked down and started messing with her phone. And at that point, when she looked up, he was no longer there. Now she is saying something completely different. This is not usually a sign of somebody that's telling the truth. This is why when officers do interrogations and things like that, they'll ask the same question multiple times in multiple different ways. That way you can get somebody to slip up and say something that is different than what they said before. That's because if they do, you're lying. And so this is interesting. Now, the other interview that we had heard, I believe that the only attorney that she had at that moment may have been David Yannetti, and Alan Jackson wasn't there yet. I do know for a fact that Alan Jackson was her attorney at this point because Alan Jackson makes an appearance in this hearing or in this interview or special that they had. All we're listening to right now is just the Karen Reed portions of what she's saying. And so far, I have heard 2 different things. You guys, let me know if you guys are hearing 2 different things. What do you think about the fact that she changed her story?
And I'm thinking, all right, let me look at my phone. And I know sooner or later.
You don't see the door open. You don't see him greeted and going in.
I see him open the door and put his head inside.
So he even says again, you don't see him doing this, right? Because I'm assuming the other interview was probably earlier, and he's probably aware of what she said before, right? That's a sign of a good journalist, to understand what somebody has said before. That way you can ask the right questions and you can get the answers and you know where to push and pull. And he's even saying you didn't see him enter, you didn't see him, you saw him approach. And she's like, no, I saw him open and then put his head through the door. Let's rewind that a little bit.
I'm like, all right, he's gonna yell, and he got out of the car.
Goes to the front door of the house?
Yes.
Did you see him go in the house?
Yeah, I saw him approach the front door and put his hand on the door.
In your memory, he's going towards a friend's house. How far do you see him go?
I see him go to the door and start to cross the threshold, and I'm thinking, all right, let me look at my phone. And I know sooner or later.
You don't see the door open. You don't see him greeted and going in.
I see him open the door and put his head inside. And I'm like, all right, he's gonna yell to me, or he's gonna come out and get me. And I look down at my phone, and in a matter of seconds, I look up and he's not there. And then I waited for him to reemerge, which I assumed was gonna be in moments. Or that he'd yell to me from the front door, "Okay,
It's good, come on in.
yeah, come on in." He didn't come back. And it pissed me off. Because one, I didn't really want to be there. Two, I had to go to the bathroom.
But where is he?
Yeah.
And if you watch this interview and you see her facial expressions and stuff, she's showing you the emotion of anger, not of an emotion of like, oh my God, my boyfriend's going to be killed here and he's dead. She's going like, I am mad. She's making those type of faces, kind of just going back into the emotion. I mean, think about it when like, you start talking to a person who may have committed a different type of crime. Like, maybe they took the life of somebody else in a different manner, and you start talking to them and they really start opening up and they start telling you about like, yeah, man, like, my emotion was that, she did this, she did that, she deserved it. She was showing me her skirt, whatever the case may have been. And they get into it and their emotions start coming into play. It's not, you can read it on their face. And this is kind of what I'm sensing here, is that she's going back into that moment and she's showing how frustrated and angry she was that night. A little bit.
It's 12:30 and I'm waiting here in the snow, in the darkness. I don't know these people well. And what did you stay to have a beer? Why aren't you signaling to me? So I soon thereafter, within Dennis probably 2 full minutes, I start calling him.
Are you getting ticked at him?
Yeah, I am ticked at him at this time, yeah. So
what happens next?
I left.
You're in your car. Will you say, I'm out of here?
No, I kind of slow rolled it off the street. And I'm hoping that as I slowly edge my way down the street, he's going to say, wait, Karen, where are you going?
Okay, so there you are.
So she slowly rolled down the street after she saw him enter his head through the threshold. Where did she get the idea that could she have hit him? Remember, she said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and preceded by a question mark. Where does that comment come from? I mean, to me, that's like, when I rolled up on a scene where somebody was drunk and there was a fight or something of that nature, and somebody goes, nobody punched him. Like, as soon as you walk up, no, nobody stole that, sir. Like, out of fear and out of being drunk and not being, being in the moment. There's lights that's blinding. The moment is real there. There's a lot of emotions that are going on in those type of scenes, especially for the person that's getting, that may have done something. And that's what that sounds like to me. When she goes, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? It's like you saw him supposedly enter the threshold of the door and you slowly went forward. What makes you think you backed into him and hit him? What makes you think you did that? That's one of those just race statements where somebody says that I would have been hopping all over it. Now, if this was an interrogation, I mean, I would have really been harping about her, her story changing and a bunch of other different things, and that being one of them as well. How do you think, where does that come into your mind, and why does that come into your mind that you possibly hit him if you rolled forward and you saw him go into the house? Doesn't make very much sense to me.
Headed home.
Yeah, I went home. I was home within probably 7 minutes.
And what do you do?
I laid on the couch inside the front door, and I just called him. I called him just over 50 times.
50 times?
Yep. And they were just going to voicemail.
It's getting very early in the morning at this point.
Yeah, I fell asleep. When I woke up after 4, I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what the hell happened. How did the night end up like this? I've never been more frightened. And it's blustery. It's blowing snow outside. And I called John's closest friends in the area, and most people weren't answering their phones. And I said, Jen, where is John? And she said, I don't know what's going on. I said, he didn't come home. And she said, let me hang up with you and call my sister. This is Brian Albert's wife, the homeowner of the property where I last saw John.
So Jen is answering that phone call. She's not in the house where the party had taken place.
No, Jen says she's home, and she calls me back in a few minutes, and she says, I talked to Nicole. She said you guys never came in.
But yet she somehow forgot, in all her driving around, that was the last place that she saw him. Even though in this moment here, she admittedly states that Jen McCabe told her, you never went into the house. Right? So why not go back there? Why go to the bars and everything else that is already closed? I mean, it's 4 a.m, right? Or 5 a.m. She's scared for some reason. She's thinking that he gets hit by a plow. Why? I mean, I would understand if she had text messages or phone calls from John saying, where'd you go? I'm going to walk home. I'll see you in a little bit. I'm walking home. How could you do this? But none of that exists. So why did she think that he even walked away from anywhere? Those things just really don't make any sense.
She said what?
She said, you guys never came in.
Your John never came in the door.
Yep. She
Okay,
just
so
said,
you're hearing the Twilight Zone music at this point.
yeah, I said, like, what the hell happened? Was there somebody else involved? Did somebody else go pick him up? Another buddy? So she said, why don't you come get me and we'll go searching for him. In the meantime, I called another friend of John's and she picked up. And I said, her name's Carrie. I said, Carrie, and I'm not saying it this calmly, but I don't know where John is and I can't find him and I'm worried. And she hung up with me and started calling around. She called the police.
My name is Carrie. I'm calling because my friend's boyfriend did not come home last night.
I think she might have called a couple hospitals. And I started feeling like he had to have gotten hit by a car or by a snowplow.
So here it is. She thought he had to have been hit. And Carrie makes an interesting comment, right? She said, my friend's boyfriend didn't come home. Is she friends of John O'Keefe's or friends of Karen's or both? Right? Because if she was like more friends of John's, I would have assumed my friend's girlfriend called me and said that my friend never showed up home. But she says my friend's boyfriend called and said she never showed up home. So this sounds more of a friend of Karen than a friend of John. And yet she's also somehow involved as well, right? I think that's what some people are saying. Possibly. I mean, possibly. I think that's what they're saying. I don't think it's true.
And he had no coat. He never wore a coat.
Just after 5 a.m., Karen drove to Jen's house. That's the two of them on Ring video, and Carrie Roberts joining them. But John wasn't there. So the women got into Carrie's car with Karen in the back seat and drove to the party house. 6 a.m., blizzard conditions. In the dark, they crept toward the house. Karen was the first to spot John.
And we turn a corner, and I see him immediately. I see his body immediately.
Now, I'm wondering what Karen Reed's phone data says when she left. Because I'm curious if she actually, she's claiming she went to the bars and all these other places that don't make sense, right? Is there footage of that she's rolling up by the bars at that early morning hour? Is there anything like that? Is there phone data that says that? Is there phone data that shows anything at all? Because I'm a little bit curious if maybe she did go back and saw him, and that's why she knew exactly where he was when they were pulling up. I mean, this is a pretty severe blizzard. John O'Keefe wasn't a fat guy that stuck out. He was a taller, bulkier man, stocky man, but he wasn't like a fat man that was large, laying on the ground. He wasn't wearing a big coat or anything like that. I don't think it would have taken much for him to get covered in a blizzard, right? And so to see that, and from what I understand, nobody else in the car saw what she was talking about. She was the only one, the person who was impaired to the point she didn't remember, according to some folks, that she didn't remember even dropping them off there. Didn't remember a lot of things because she was hammered. She's the one that makes the finding. I find that suspicious as well.
It was windswept lawn, and there was just a heat.
And this is on the front lawn of the after party house.
Yeah, on the perimeter. It's on the front lawn of the Alberts, but it's very close to their neighbors. There's a cluster of trees, and he's in there.
That's him.
It didn't look like John. I mean, I couldn't see his face or his hair, but I knew it was him. I knew it was something that didn't belong on that lawn. I mean, he's a big guy. He was 6'2", 220.
Do you run out of the vehicle and start screaming?
I said, there he is. I said, he's right there. And Kerry goes, where? And Jen says, I don't see him. She goes, Karen, you're hysterical. I said, he's right there. And they don't. Now, we're going slow. It's bad weather. But Kerry doesn't stop the car. So I jump out out of the passenger side and I fell on the street. And I ran over to him and his eyes were swollen shut. He had blood dripping out of his nose.
Was he alive?
He seemed like he could be. I'm only out there for a minute or two, and then Kerry runs over. And then Kerry and I take turns between mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and chest compressions. And maybe within 15 minutes, I don't know who arrived first, a ladder truck or I'm not sure, but they were there in pretty short order.
So if Jenna Cave is calling 911 and Kerry is helping doing CPR, they're trying to get him assistance to save his life. If they were a part of some scheme, wouldn't that, if he survived, wouldn't that kind of like, screw them up? I don't know. I just kind of curious.
I actually texted my father and I said, I think John's dead. And he called me and I said, Dad, I don't want to be alive. Like I don't want to live. And I didn't know what the hell happened. How did the night end up like this? And I am put under a psychiatric watch, just two vestibules down from where they're working on John's body. And then eventually, just before noon, my father comes into the room that I'm in. And I said, Dad, how is he? And he said, he's gone. John's gone, Karen. And I just collapsed on the floor.
They'd briefly dated in their 20s. This time it felt right.
Thank you, Sirius, for your $5 super chat saying thank you for covering this case, Daniel. Lots of information on this case as well. Thank you. I appreciate you.
I found him to be a very different person, but in a very interesting way. There was more depth there after what he had been through.
At John's house, she was the fun bonus parent.
We had theme nights, so we'd have like a fiesta night. We had a formal night where we all dressed up and ate at the dining room table with the fancy china.
How did the kids take to Karen?
They liked her.
So I wanted to add that in there, that the kids, they things don't just go bad from one day to the next and they just stay together, right? So there was probably some good times between, Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. It just doesn't, like I said, it doesn't go from one day to the next like that. And, I'm not surprised that at one point they liked him, but at the end of the day, it's what happened towards the end of the relationship. And it sounds like from the niece and nephews that, maybe they didn't expect that there'd be a murder involved, but that the relationship wouldn't survive. And so it's a big different story about how things are in the beginning versus where they are at the end. But I did want to point that out there, that it wasn't always all bad.
The O'Keefes left, went to John's house to tell the kids, by then 14 and 11. And then Karen arrived. That's her on the Ring video. She'd been released from the hospital into her parents' care and wanted to see the children. She'd been alarmed by the mood at the house.
I felt some tension with John's mother. She seemed to be keeping her distance and it felt uncomfortable. She wasn't really addressing me and she did not seem to want the kids near me.
Karen says that's why she left and went straight to her parents' house.
I wasn't asked about what happened at that house. Nothing about where did he go? Did he enter in? How did I come to find him? Who did I call? It was, how much did I have to drink and could you have done a 3-point turn? And before they left, they took my phone and they...
So she's referencing the police and they're asking her if she did a 3-point turn. Because if she, if later on, it comes to find out that she did go in reverse and she's saying she didn't do 3-point turn, that she went forward, that she slowly went off the way she mentioned earlier. And they come to find out that that's not the case. That's going to be a huge red flag and a pretty big sign of guilt there, that she's, denying going in reverse. The reason why they're going to ask her, did you do a 3-point turn? And she's going to say no, is because if she did hit him, which I strongly suspect at this point that she did, especially with the taillight pieces that we have discovered before. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out it's in the Karen Reed playlist. I did a video that kind of showed what pieces were missing and what pieces were found that morning that indicate that Karen Reed did in fact hit John O'Keefe, because there are pieces missing on that video when she pulls out of John O'Keefe's garage. The inner part, I think I mentioned it earlier, the inner part close to the tailgate, that's missing. And, her vehicle was in the garage, so it was safe from the elements, and it's not there on the ground. it had to have been knocked off before. And if they found those pieces and that specific piece closest to the tailgate, at the scene, it's over. I mean, it doesn't show intent yet, but it shows that she hit him.
That's for my car keys.
The troopers took her SUV, and Karen called a lawyer. Boston attorney David Yannetti.
There was a good 8 to 10 cops. They went all around my house, shining lights in, and started banging on the doors, and they all just flooded my house.
She was charged with John's death.
And David had one copy of the charging documents, and he held them through the bars, and we read them together. And there are a few things in there that stood out right away to me that worried me.
At the arraignment, she found John in the snow. It didn't occur to her he could have been beaten.
I had seen John, and he was bloodied in the face, and he had cuts that were bleeding on his face, and his eyes were purple, but I didn't know when I saw him that he looked like he got beaten up. I mean, I was just focused on trying to revive him. Brian Albert was on a reality show that profiled his fugitive unit in Boston. He's in a...
So she's talking about that she didn't realize that he could have been punched. And then the next thing they segment into is that Brian Albert was part of a reality show. And in that reality show, it showed that he was a boxer. I mean, there's a lot of police officers that take a lot of self-defense training and recreational training and fighting. I myself did quite a bit, mixed martial arts and things of that nature. We had a buddy of mine who was really big into like the UFC type of fights, mixed martial arts stuff. And he was a police officer, a friend of mine. And he would take myself and about 4 other officers. And this is when we first started off right out of the academy. And he would train us on a few moves there. And we got pretty intense with that. So it's not uncommon, for an officer to know jiu-jitsu or what was it, that other one that we knew? Something with a K. It's off my head. Well, anyways, boxing, those type of things, those are pretty common. It doesn't mean that you murdered somebody just because you have that type of training. I think I'd rather, I think that weight of justice or weight of balance there. The guy was a trained, boxer at one point, and you have a very angry and upset girlfriend who was highly intoxicated. I think that those kind of line a little bit more towards that maybe perhaps the drunken, angered person may have done something.
Boxing club and with other cops, and he's lacing up and he's getting in the boxing ring and he's fighting.
The tipster also seemed to have detailed knowledge of John's injuries, details that hadn't been made public.
He said his injury.
So they claim that they got a tipster. Somebody called in, and they're the ones that told them that. And this is David Yannetti and Karen Reed. And this is why it took a while for them to come up with this theory, because they had to get it from a tipster, supposedly. And this tipster told them that he had been that he had seen, or he had known that it wasn't what it looked like, that there was a fight, and Brian Albert may have been involved, something of that nature, right? They're the ones that gave him the idea. That's basically what they were saying. But if you listen to what they say, it doesn't really sound like that too.
These don't coincide with a car accident, and that added some validity, and it was inside information.
Right.
He knew what the body looked like too.
But then suddenly the tipster got cold feet.
He got nervous. I was taking notes, and he did not like that. He started to back off sort of his basis of knowledge.
And when police eventually interviewed him, he disputed Karen and Yannetti's story. The tipster said he learned details about the case from talking to them, and insisted he had no inside knowledge.
He's recanted.
The tipster might have abandoned his own tips, but Karen and her attorney did not. They had no idea if any of the tipster's story was true, and he didn't provide any proof. However, the information he gave them became the beginnings of a defense.
We were off and running.
Yeah, we were off and running. This man who knows what he knows somehow, he crystallized and confirmed our suspicions.
All right, listen to what she just said. This tipster is the one that gave him the idea and got them off and going, and yet he crystallized and confirmed what they were already thinking. Those are two contradictory statements there. All right, because either the tipster gave you the idea and that's when you started going with it, or you had that idea beforehand and he confirmed it. Those are two different things. And when the tipster comes back and says, yo, the only thing I know is because of what they told me. Well, it kind of sounds like they may have been giving a lot of information to him. I mean, they were seeking confirmation of what they thought. And so I can see them contacting somebody and saying, hey, such and such, yada, yada, yada. This is what we know. Does this look like a car accident? Does this look like a dog bite situation? Kind of giving him those things. And when he's like, oh yeah, this looks like this. I know Brian Albert, blah, 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 blah. He's a bit of a hothead or whatever he may have said. And then they're spinning this entire narrative that by the sounds of it doesn't sound like it was ever real.
But the case against Karen Reed was about to take a big turn. The state had convened a grand jury and heard from John's niece and nephew that Karen and John argued frequently and that John wanted to end the relationship. The prosecutor also presented indicating Karen was drunk when she allegedly backed into John. Karen told Dennis Murphy what happened.
I have seen what looks like surveillance video of that car. I think
that's
it's
a ring video.
Backing out of your parking space?
Backing out of a garage.
Out of a garage. Is that at John's house?
At John's, yep.
In backing up, did you bang into his car?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Did you feel it? Did you hear it?
Yeah, I felt a little, and I
on your back right?
On my passenger back right, yep.
You felt
I hit John's back left. I said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him?
How could that have been? I mean, you dropped him
I
off at the
don't know
house?
what else could have been. I thought, did he somehow try to flag me down and maybe tripped and I ran over his foot and then he passed out drunk? I mean,
she said in this interview, like she slowly went away looking at the house to see if he were to come out or wave or flag like, hey, she's leaving. And now maybe he came out while she's looking at the house, didn't see him running up to the car and ran over his foot. And somehow that logically got into her head that she would have hit him. I think what she's trying to do is cover up for some of the statements that she made that are very incriminating.
I didn't think I hit him.
There's innuendo here that you guys had.
So she said, I didn't think I hit him. So she did think she hit him. Just didn't hit him like that. Tapped him maybe. Ran over his foot. But not enough to push him back and kill him, right? This is minimization. This is another clear indication from somebody who's committed a crime when they start to minimize what they have done. I may have hit him. If I did, I ran over his foot. I didn't do it enough to kill him. It's not me. These are a lot of clear signs that I'm seeing of a person who's probably lying about a lot of things that she's saying about that night.
Really been going at it. And this was sort of had like a last date element to it. Was that going on?
That was not going on. John made it clear to me, I'm never breaking up with you.
John made it clear that I'm never breaking up with you. The kids are testifying to some other different things. We all heard her talking to him. Apparently that's not the first time that she talked to him in that manner in front of other people either. Yeah. They're never breaking up. She also said that she never considered, marriage never came up. So how do you know? I mean, I would understand if maybe perhaps he was talking about marriage or those type of things that you can come up with a statement like, I'm never going to break up with you. But that wasn't even on the table. That was nowhere near in consideration. And then secondly, she was already, starting to cheat on him with another officer or a special agent. Man, I don't know about that.
Not never that we're in this good or bad, but you're the best person I've ever been with.
You're a loser. Yourself.
They just seem to be in a happy place.
So that's the end of that one. This next one is going to be Janet Reed and her husband. This is Karen Reed, her parents.
Yeah.
And spending a lot of time together.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Vacations together.
Yep.
Going out together. During your first discussions with Karen, did she believe she may have hit John? No. She felt she struck something.
So in her first conversations with her parents, and her boyfriend is found, and at that moment, thoughts are that somebody hit him, She's even thinking that somebody may have hit him, whether it be another vehicle or a plow. She starts talking about that she felt like she hit something. Like, that's a weird time to bring that up. You get what I'm saying? So let's see. Let's continue.
She said, Dad, I think I struck something. I said, what do you mean? Right? This was in the hospital. Right? She says, I remember, all right, backing up and hitting something. She backs up to go out and search.
And so now they're bringing up the video of when she hits John O'Keefe's car.
For John O'Keefe. And that's how that vehicle was damaged. Look at it frame by frame.
I mean, it depends on what you think is cheating, right? She was calling and texting another man, going to his house and kissing him. I mean, that's not really the signs of somebody that is faithful either.
And you tell me whether or not the O'Keefe vehicle, the left rear wheel, does not jetson forward upon impact and return to its previous position for investigators.
And it does, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can see the wheel move a little bit. However, the big problem is as that vehicle is pulling away, there's a large, significant piece of taillight that is missing. And that big piece of taillight that is missing is nowhere to be seen on the ground right there. You know, you would expect to see those pieces shattered into the ground, into the snow. They're big red pieces. They should be, you know, popping off the screen. I mean, you can see a bunch of other little things in the frame. You can see the difference in multiple things. I'll see if I can bring it up before the end of the show so we can look at it together.
Also have found multiple people who have been attacked by the dog. I think John O'Keefe entered that house, was sucker punched, a fight ensued, and he was overwhelmed.
So he believes that when John O'Keefe is walking up, that all these guys are just ready for him to walk in just so they can beat him up. And they devised this plan to cover this up. And so I wonder when Mr. Reed believes that this criminal cop organization got together and they were like circled together and like, all right, we got to kill John O'Keefe. We're going to invite him here and we're going to need to get some paramedics on the job on the day because we need them to hear what we want them to hear. We're going to need to get first responders. We're going to get the firefighters involved in this. We need to make sure that all of our people are working on the specific day so that we can do this. Get out of here, man.
If the events happened the way Karen's attorneys say they did, how many people would have to be involved in the cover-up? My sense is that there are a handful of people.
This guy's Spider-Man having senses?
Influential people who know what happened. And ultimately, all right, will resolve these issues. My daughter will be free. That's what I believe. Are you confident of that as well?
Yes.
Yep. Is Karen?
Yes.
That confident?
Yes.
Yeah. We are.
The trial just days away, Karen is prepping with her lawyers.
So before we get into this one, this is when she's in her little hotel room and she's prepping, like the guy said, they're going to be prepping for the lawyers. And she's going to talk about how woe life is for her, you know, and things of that nature. You know, I'll be honest with you. At this point, I strongly suspect that she hit him. You know, based on where he landed, I strongly suspect that she swerved to hit him. And I'm really leaning to the fact that this was actually intentional. Given the alcohol, the anger, and we're going to look at one injury that I want to show you guys before we call it a show. But let's listen to what she says here. And I think we actually hear her real emotion here too.
This is no life. Like this, I'm not in prison, but this is no life. I'm stressed every day. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. I'm at a hotel. I need to be here to be near the attorneys so we can prep for trial. I don't have a car. I don't have a license. So trying to meet them from the suburbs every day just wouldn't be efficient. The change of scenery is actually welcome. My home's become like the Alamo. Just constantly looking out the window. I mean, 3 times in 2 years I've had the state police come in. And 2 of those 3 times they've arrested me. 3 of the 3 they've taken my cell phone. Once your sanctuary's been breached, you can't relax there. This is no life. Like this, I'm not in prison, but this is no life. I'm stressed every day. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. I can't live like this. I mean, I will. I just really don't want to, is what I should say. But hiding out like this, you just watch the world pass you by, and you're going through the motions, pun intended.
Going through the motions, pun intended. She's making jokes. She's cracking jokes. You know, at the end of the day, her, you know, the guy that she claims was never going to leave her. You know, they were going to, you know, they loved each other. He's dead. And yet I don't really see any emotion or hear any emotion from Karen Read that's real when it comes to John O'Keefe. In fact, I think after the mistrial, I think she said she wanted to do some sort of, she wanted to go on tour and meet all of her supporters and this, that, and the third. You know, where's the, I want to make sure that my boyfriend gets justice. I want to make sure that these police officers are, you know, they're in jail or whatever the case may be. You know, where's the tribute to John? Where's the, I think there's some family members of John who have had his initials and his badge number tattooed, and they remember him. Where's that at? You know what I mean? But we'll figure out how much emotion she does have to certain things she does care about.
And but you know, it could all end. I could be convicted, and this is the end of everything. So it just feels like a kind of purgatory. I've prepared for every scenario. That's just how I have to live. So I've thought through everything. I've thought through, where will I celebrate when this is over? Where do I want to live? Who do I want to surround myself with?
Where do I celebrate? Where in the world do I want to live? And who do I want to surround myself? Nothing about John. Nothing about John. Nothing about John. Interesting.
But I've also thought, all right, if I'm convicted, what are the next steps? Got all my court clothes.
Listen to this. This is the part I really want you guys to hear.
Nothing fun, nothing for a trip, but just lots of suits. I just want to communicate that I'm still confident. I don't like the position I'm in, but I'm confident. I'm doing everything I can, and that includes looking professional for court, dressing like my attorneys. I think that's the sign of respect for what's happening when you're in court. I just got this suit from the tailor because the sleeves are too long, and it's a pet peeve of my mother's to see people with sleeves that are too long.
You think about your mother when you get dressed?
Yes, all the time. It's funny to tell you that. She probably taught me how to dress and tells me how to dress, and not in a way that mothers may nag their daughters, but I've never seen my mother ever in my whole life, and she doesn't compliment me and tell me I look nice.
So when I heard this real emotion for the first time out of Karen Read, not about John O'Keefe, not about her boyfriend dying, none of these other interviews, nothing that she's ever done has ever showed this raw emotion here. I thought her mom passed. You know, I was like, oh my God, did her mom pass before the trial happened? I was really like taken back by that. I was like, man, I feel, you know, that's regardless of anything. I mean, losing your mother is very hard. I don't think she's passed though. And so she's talking about her mom, and real emotions are finally coming out from her. That's what real emotion, that's what real sadness sounds like for somebody, for Karen Read. This is a baseline to determine if she really is sad or not sad about the situation. You know, John O'Keefe passed. Her mother didn't. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if she knows, but I'm aware of that. That even when I've been in the thick of this, even getting out of jail, you know, she's always saying something positive to me as soon as I see her. It's funny you asked me that. I didn't even realize that. I think about her whenever I get dressed. I do, because I'm thinking she's gonna see me. And I don't usually cry. I guess if you ask about my parents, I will. I can't even talk about them.
It's because she loves her parents. All right, so that's the end of the interviews that we have. I do want to show you one thing, guys, and then I'm going to answer some of the comments that I've gone through and start, and then I'll start some other ones. All right, we'll get some comments going before we call it a show. But look at this. Let's look at this clearly. This is the defense picture, as you guys can see. Karen Read's right here, and this is one of her attorneys holding up the picture. And a lot of people say there's no bruises. What the heck does that look like to you guys? That looks like a lot of bruises. Now, if this was a dog bite, what happened to the dog's bottom jaw? I mean, look at how close these two canine teeth apparently are. You know, how big is that dog? Like, is this a Chihuahua? But look at that. You got a really nice bruise right there. And this isn't the only picture that you can see it on. So let's look at it from a different angle, from a different part of view. It's also lined up a little bit. Oh, look at that. That bruise is there. Now, if that bruise is there and he got hit right here and that tail light popped, where do you think those fragments are going to go? Jeez, I wonder. And no, Deb, that's not how dog bites look. But if I don't know what you're referencing. If it's referencing the dog bites, no. If you're referencing some things shattering in one direction, I would say yes. Because look. Let's break this down real quick. You have this injury here going up and down, up and down, up and down. This one's also going up and down, 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 up and down. There's nothing going side to side. What kind of dog is this? Is this a dog that only bites like this with his head sideways? Without a lower jaw? I don't mean to laugh, but come on. I'll show you guys a picture of a German Shepherd bite. You know, the members know what I'm talking about. Members know what I've been talking about, but apparently the bruise on his hand was also from blocking jabs, right? Blocking some jabs. So he's blocking jabs while a dog is biting him sideways, and he's holding the dog up while blocking some jabs. Oh my God. I'll show you guys a dog bite. Let me do that real quick. Let me show you what a real canine dog bite looks like. Give me 1 second. I'll show you what a real one looks like. I'll probably get demonetized, so please hit that like, please hit that subscribe button, the whole 9 yards. Well, this episode will probably lose its monetization when I sent you guys this. And this is a German Shepherd that bit my brother about maybe 6-7 months ago. This was an untrained German Shepherd. My brother was in a house. Long story short, he does like remodels and things of that nature. He was talking to a client, and the client's husband came home and accidentally let the dog out, and the dog came out and bit him, let go, and ran away out of fear. So let's pull that up. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. I'm not going to show this for very long because, like as I said, that it'll get taken away. But this is what an actual German Shepherd bite looks like. So there you go. That dog that bit my brother there on the arm was a German Shepherd, untrained, was in fear of my brother, bit him, and ran away. And it was a female German Shepherd. You know, when a dog bites a person, the fangs, if the fangs get into the arm, the front teeth also get into the arm. Unless it's like a vampire dog that doesn't have the front teeth, or a chupacabra. You know, maybe it's a chupacabra that's running out there that's biting him. But normally you'll see the jaw line, and you don't see that in John O'Keefe's arm. Let's see, let me pull that other pictures back up real quick. So where's the jaw? Where's the jaw right here? Where's the inner canines that are there? They're not there. You know, I've asked the homicide detective. I've asked another officer who also showed these pictures to a canine handler, and none of them agree that this is from a German Shepherd. You know, they don't know if, it was from an accident or not. You know, we didn't go into details. I didn't really say anything else other than, do you think a German Shepherd committed these injuries? They had no knowledge of the Karen Reed case. They weren't involved in it. I mean, we live all in Texas, so majority of the people don't know about it. The only reason I know about it is because I talk about true crime. And truth is, especially like when I was an officer, I never really looked into other profiles or the crimes, high profile crimes throughout the nation or any of those type of things, because you got your own stuff to deal with. You know what I mean? You have your own cases. Here, this is, there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. And you have two slices here that are rigid, which could be from a plastic tailpiece. You know what I'm saying? This one here looks a little bit more like a tear through them. But where's the meat? Where's the flesh? Where's the fat that's missing out of the arm? It's not there. Where's the lower jaw? Where are the paw marks and the scratches that are going in different angles? Because at the end of the day, when a dog jumps on somebody and bites, they do use their paws and their arms to scratch. Those markings would be going up and down his body, which would be, you would see marks going traveling in this in this direction right here, you know, from left to right, because obviously he would be standing. So for them not to be going left to right and everything be going right to left, meaning if he was standing, or everything going up and down here, meaning if he was standing, it was everything right to left. Is this dog on its side levitating? Like, it doesn't make any sense. None whatsoever. And from what I heard about the dog expert that the defense had, the lady hadn't worked on a dog bite in like this century, from what I understand. And yes, that on a moving arm. I mean, if there was a, especially if somebody had their arm moving, you would expect to see scratches and cuts and all these things in all different directions. It's an attack. It's not one, like, it's not like just, oh, ooh, 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 ooh. That's not the same. You know what I mean? Listen to the expert. See, here's the thing. When I was in law enforcement, I didn't contact these like so-called experts and jury and trial. And I did catch the expert that was talking for the defense. And I was like listening to how they were just ripping her apart in this most recent trial hearing, because I am trying to catch all these recent ones. I want to see how it works out on this new case. And man, that lady was getting ripped apart. She hadn't seen a dog bite in like since I think OJ was probably playing football still, or was still a actor out there. You know, he hadn't even committed his crime, was the last time that she had looked at a dog bite. Come on now. And Google dog bites. Yeah, I just showed you one. I showed you one. It don't look nothing like this. And that was from a female German Shepherd that was untrained and was timid.